Yeah, as soon as we go live, you'll be full. So. The public notice indicated live viewing or Zoom or here. So we have to make all of them available.
Rob, say here.
I am here.
Okay, item number 2, can I have a motion to approve the January 11th meetings?
So moved.
Second,
A second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And I abstain, was not at that meeting. Item number 3, does staff have anything to report?
Briefly, yes. During this meeting, I don't know if we were fully back in January. Since we have a Zoom meeting going on and it's being streamed live, if you are speaking, one of you all are speaking, you need to make sure you hit the red light on your microphone. Otherwise, the people on YouTube Live listening or on Zoom won't be able to hear you very well. So please make sure you do that. And then you can tap the button to shut it off when you're done, and we'll make sure the public speaking one is in the same boat. We have development going on all over town still. It hadn't stopped. You may have heard from folks. You may have seen it yourselves. Development is moving at an exceedingly fast pace. One of the things that we are going to do as a staff is we're going to put the brakes on our submission schedule for stuff coming before here. Currently, we've been running on a 6 weeks lead time schedule, and that's just becoming just too difficult to get done. In part because, and you will see here on this meeting, we've got public hearings and final plat documents that we had to postpone, and we will ask for a postponement officially because the traffic study reviews, both of which we do one, and we also have MoDOT do one if it's directly impacted 169. And MoDOT's folks retired in the last couple of months, so they have new people doing it. They're about 3 to 4 weeks out before they can get their stuff complete. Now it's down to 2 to 3 weeks, but on some of them, it's really important. Other ones, it's just more of a review. They've done their stuff. So we're going to slow down the time process so that we can hopefully build in more time to get MoDOT back up, because I anticipate a lot of our stuff at least on the south end is going to be 169 impactful. So we need to make sure that MoDOT's also reviewing for their concerns associated with impacts on the highway. That way, any developments are covering those costs. If you have any questions about any of the projects or developments going on, I can give you an update on the relative status of those. We are at about 38 or 39 residential permits this year, I think. about 3/4 of the way of where we were last year at the end of the year. So we're exceeding very fast. Commercial construction is continuing. We anticipate the medical marijuana facility, which will have a huge impact on the school district's finances. That's been an issue of the last couple of years. When it goes on, and it should be May, June, maybe July, before they get all that work done. Because that's a very, very large facility. And then several other projects are moving forward currently. So in addition to the zoning and planning, we actually have construction stuff going on too. So if you have any questions, I'll hope to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions? Alderman Chevalier?
Hey, Jack. So on slowing down the review process, I mean, that's partly, is that just you guys
We can't keep up.
can't keep up and but it also includes the MoDOT, but there's just multiple things.
Yeah, it's just so much stuff going on. If we want to do it right, we have to take enough time to do it. And if we get several large projects that could drop in on us, it just is a lot of work with, 4 departments in the city plus MoDOT a lot of the time. We have our outside engineers doing the reviews as well. So we've got to get all that. So it takes some legwork to get it all done, and trying to get it all done in 6 weeks is just becoming untenable.
Thanks.
Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to item number 4, public hearing. This is a public hearing on the Plan Development Overlay District, McBee's Coffee and Car Wash, Smithville Library Heights, Track A, southeast corner of 169 Highway in Richardson. And for the public, this is a public hearing on a Plan Development Overlay District for McBee's Coffee and Car Wash. If any members of the public that wish to speak for or against this item, please identify yourself, give your name, address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. But first, I will call on staff to present an overview of the proposal.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This conceptual plan approval before you is based on a couple of things. They're wanting to divide an existing lot that's going to shorten the frontage requirements, and the lots are going to be small. So they require some conceptual plan allowable variances from what the basic code says. The zoning code has certain size requirements, et cetera, that just become untenable to handle in the modern day. It will be something that we'll have to update in the future, but currently the best resolution that we have on the books currently is to do a conceptual plan. The purpose of that plan is to identify to the most maximum extent possible issues that are going to happen on a project. In this one, for example, we have the McBee's project. You see it on your plans there. It's a drive-through car wash that offers coffee and various other aspects there. They provided us with the traffic stuff. That's what we're working on. The traffic stuff doesn't impact the conceptual plan. The conceptual plan addresses the items in the staff report, which are primarily, is the development placed in a good spot? Is it not going to require a bunch of extra grading or, tearing up natural resources? Does it meet the site plan requirements? In this case, we have 2 lots, but only one of them has a proposal on it. So in order to be approved under the conceptual plan process, they had to lay out. That's why you see the building layout. Does the building design, et cetera, all those things have to be in the plan. One of the specific things that the conceptual plan allows is other certain variances associated with certain aspects of the code. The bulk requirements, the setback requirements can change as long as the overall intent is met. In this particular plan, one of the most significant requests for a variance is to allow the amalgamation of 3 wall signs into various sizes that wouldn't ordinarily meet the standards. We have a maximum sign on a wall size of 64 square feet per one sign. This application would allow them to make one sign 100 square feet, another one 20 square feet, and the third one 80 square feet, whatever. I don't remember the numbers. They're all on the page. It meets the intent. It allows that minimal variance. When we implemented this years ago, the conversation was the maximum growth variable that would be considered was 10% maximum. And this one is under that, the maximum growth of the size, the variance. The logic being if it becomes more than a minimal change of 10%, it needs to go through the zoning board of adjustment process because it's a significant change. But 10% of this it was at that time, and staff has continually used that as our standard. So that's the most significant change. If you see, they've got a specific site layout for their project. The other half of the lot or project would be on the south side. And it would be for a future project to go in there. Can't really say what it will be. We know who the current owner is and they may decide to develop there, but it isn't a requirement. So when that portion of the project goes, there will be potential adjustments to that lot access point and how that works out. It depends on where they would ultimately set the building. Any of that, not necessarily any, all of that has to come back through this commission, including what the building would look like, unless they build it exactly like the McBee's building. Doubt they will, because it won't be the same type. But they would have to come back for a site plan review because the only one we have is for McBee's here. So it kind of lays out what the purpose of the conceptual plan is, that it also incorporates the site plan requirements, which is the landscaping, all those things. As long as all those things are met, then it's something that can move forward. And based upon all the studies they've provided us and our calculations, they meet all the standards in the site plan as well. So this one's ultimately allows them to make the change. You will also see, and I mentioned it before, I'll highlight it again for the public and some of you to clarify, following this discussion on the zoning aspect of it is a public hearing for the single phase final plat. It's got highlighted in yellow on your application to be postponed. The purpose of that is we have not yet gotten the traffic stuff fully completed. It is an integral part of any subdivision. So until that's done, other than postponing it, it would be staff recommendation would be to deny it because we don't have all the information. The applicant has agreed to extend this until such time as we should be able to wrap it up and have this on the next agenda in May. So that's why we're requesting a postponement on that. I think that's a big enough, broad enough overlay and highlights all the essential significant issues. So.
Thank you, Jack.
Mhm.
Do I have anybody from the public who wants to speak on this?
Nobody.
Okay,
If we may, I know that the library official, Mr. Potter, is on. I don't know if he wants to speak or not, but I did have a conversation with him concerning this matter. So if Steve Potter wants to speak, he'll have to, there we go.
Steve, you'll have 3 minutes.
Well, and I'm not going to say much. This is Steve Potter, a library director in Mid-Continent Public Library, and thank you for the opportunity to set in. I believe Kristen Stein is also in the audience. Kristen is one of the regional managers for Mid-Continent, and she's attending the meeting. We did have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Hendricks, or I had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Hendricks, and had most of my questions answered at this point in time. And so at this point, the library is just, as always, interested in all things that are going on in our communities and wanting to keep apprised and making sure that all development that does occur is good for us and good for the community and hopefully a win-win situation. That's what we are hoping for tonight. So thank you for the opportunity to set in and watch this and for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Seeing no more left to speak, I call the hearing closed. On to item number 5, McBee Coffee and Car Wash Plan Development Overlay District, 2 lots to be created with site plan approval of McBee's Coffee and Car Wash Building. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the proposal?
So moved.
John.
Yeah, John.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a
Make,
couple,
make sure you scoot it a little closer to you. so we
yeah,
hear.
I just turned it on. I have a couple questions for Jack. You said the MoDOT hasn't come out with anything yet for that?
Correct.
So we don't know whether to a stoplight or anything like that.
This is the same intersection that is subject to a stoplight
Yeah.
with the Richard Street Plaza project that came through 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay.
As you recall, same thing applies to
Yeah.
this project as it did before. The intersection already meets 2 warrants. We are working on a scheduling process with MoDOT to get both city contribution through developers and the city potentially. We've spoken with Mr. Potter about the potential of the library being a part contributor. Just so you know, as it relates to that matter, the library, when they came in 2009 with their application, they had a traffic study that said a light should go in. And it should go in then. At that time, MoDOT used a different measuring distance standard and wanted it farther apart for whatever reason. And said, no, we don't want one there. Those folks that did that in 2009 are no longer here. So when they did their study, it said, no, one's needed. So.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, yes, yes, I fully understand that. The bigger question is going to be a timing scenario. We're working on a scheduling for funding it in conjunction with MoDOT. We're hopeful it will be a joint project between the city and MoDOT using developer funds to the city and working out that timing and scheduling with MoDOT.
Okay.
It is similar to the scenario up north at 188th Street. As it relates to just those improvements by the new Herzog Foundation. That was identified with a residential development that hasn't got all its ducks in a row yet, that it already needed a bunch of turn lane improvements. That's what MoDOT's going to start bidding out this fall. So it's a similar scenario. We just, we're working with the new impacting parties to contribute some, and we'll go from there to figure out. That's way down the road. It may be 2-3 years before it actually gets built. We don't know because these are about $400,000 to $500,000. So it's a big project.
Oh, boy. Okay, the other thing that caught my eye was on the landscape. You know, I'm really big on using native species to Missouri.
Mhm.
And I noticed they got burning bush in there, and it might seem nitpicky, but burning bush is on the Missouri Department of Conservation's invasive species hit list. So it would be nice if they would consider Missouri natives. Because if you get too many invasives out there, the taxpayers everywhere are having to pay to have them removed. So
And ultimately, we can address it with them. We don't have a provision in our
I know. I'm
in our code, and
just
you and I
making
have
that
discussed it.
suggestion.
We need
Yes,
to,
we
we need to
have.
discuss it, but we do not have a provision to require those.
Yeah.
So these folks have been extremely accommodating to it. And one of them is here. So she's going to hear it. And it will may be something that they consider to address. We'll
Right,
see.
right.
But it's not, we don't have the ability to require it
Okay.
yet, as we discussed.
No other questions? This is a roll call vote. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Jack, I do have a question. This is Rob Scarborough. Just curious, ultimately, who's responsible for funding the stoplight?
This one is a combination of adjacent development, the city, and MoDOT. So it's a combination. We haven't figured out exactly how those dollars are going to come. We know what what's been approved for the other project. We haven't gotten there on this one as it relates to access points and the contribution. We literally got our city stuff last week, but we have yet to get anything from MoDOT. I don't anticipate MoDOT's will change of any significance because they've already done their review and their big things the light. So that's where we sit on that one. It'll be a
So there-
combination of,
So there
Yeah.
aren't necessarily set percentages based on square footage or city or MoDOT. Is it a negotiation at that point?
well, ultimately, in this scenario, the developer contributions, there's going to be some, we have to be reasonable with the numbers. We know where the other one across the corner is and how big and the size and scope of it. We have to be reasonable with these folks. We will discuss it with the existing library area, which brought the whole stoplight issue into potential because Richardson was a T road until that was done. The likelihood of getting, businesses that have been there for decades on the south side of Richardson, on the east side of the, or west side of the road to contribute, probably nil. We will engage them because I think they all understand the sooner it gets done, the better their traffic flow in and out will be. So yes and no, we have percentages we're working on, but we don't know the final percentages until the end. Like I said, MoDOT already has met some of its own warrants existing, but it's very limited on those warrants that trigger the light. If that's clear, I may have made it worse.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Are you, what about the post office and all the other ones on the corner that's on that street?
Yeah.
How far back are you actually looking at?
We're going to, when we get down to brass tacks, we're going to talk to the first 2 or 3 back. And it's the ones that have the most significant impact. I can tell you now, I doubt we will hear anything back from the post office side. But we can hope. And, ultimately it's a scenario where they will substantially benefit from having a traffic light there. Because currently it can be a booger.
Everyone would. at
Yeah,
that point.
yeah, but it can be a booger getting in and out.
So
Especially during the morning drive if you're on one side or the evening drive if you're on the other.
my other question too was, what's the hours are they looking at running this?
No idea. That's,
I just think about traffic. I think it will be. Because you see some of these with the cars backed out for,
yeah, and that's part of the reason
Long
why there's
ways.
such a long queue. They've got 14 in that lane. They probably have enough for another 12 cars to get around the corner. This will likely, if it's up and running, this will likely be like the donut shop. If you recall when the donut shop went in, traffic was
early-
absolutely horrible.
Yeah, yeah.
Now there's no blip.
Yeah.
It's just like the in and outs that are going in all over the town. Everybody has to figure out a new way to get in and out for that brief period of the rush. But after that's over, traffic will normalize. People won't pull in if they see it's already full because they know how long it takes.
I do have a question since you asked that about, and we went back to what happened with the Donut Palace. With that traffic backed up on 169, that could become a potential concern because of the fact they're coming down that hill. So how would we address that? What would the police department be involved with that?
Yeah,
What would happen? there?
Ultimately, if it becomes a scenario, we would do it through education, the police department page. If they need to get out there, they do, they will. Just like, for example, when there's football game, police are all over that because they have to be. Because it's absolutely the worst traffic scenario we have is a football game. So yes, I think the police would be somewhat involved. But once again, they were somewhat involved with the other one. And most of it is an educational scenario. Hey, be smart. And that usually is sufficient.
So any discussion on putting a right turn lane in there?
That's
heading-
part of the
heading
traffic.
north? Okay, that's what I
That's part of
thought.
the
I thought we discussed that.
Yeah,
previously.
that's part of the traffic stuff that we need to finalize. Like I said, we just got our engineers' comments back. MoDOT may or may not even provide comments on this one. We have scheduled a tentative schedule of sometime later this week of meeting with Ashley with McBee's and her engineers and our staff to go over what we're looking for, what we may need, what we may not need. Some of it's just going to be, what are the options? Most of this traffic stuff is up here over my head. So we have a Missouri engineer here that works as the Public Works Director. We're going to have Chuck involved in all of that too. That will be the subdivision part that comes later. Next month, assuming everything works out. So
Okay, any other questions? Not clerk, please call roll.
Okay, I see them sure that my minutes are correct. I have Dawn for the second. Who did the original? All right. Deb,
Aye.
Mayor Boley,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Rob,
If she called me, it's not very loud through Zoom.
You can use Rob's mic.
Alderman Chevalier,
Aye.
Billy,
Aye.
7-0.
if I may, to clarify, this matter is an ordinance, so it'll have to go to the Board of Aldermen for 2 readings. The first one is going to be May 3rd because we have the election certification stuff at the 19th. So we're going to have one board that's on and then it leaves and have another board. So we're going to just schedule it for the 3rd, the second reading on the 19th. It will allow us, assuming everything goes to plan, to have the Planning Commission in between those 2 meetings in May. So we can have that meeting. Any final plat recommendation from this commission is by resolution. So it would be able to be on the later after a zoning approval, assuming that happens, and have it all wrapped up by the May 19th date. So next time this will be up before the board, this recommendation will be on May the 3rd.
Moving on to item number 6, public hearing. We have that to be postponed. I need a first and a second.
Motion to approve or motion to postpone number 6, public hearing.
I'll make,
Is that a roll call vote?
Yes, it is, please.
Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Billy,
aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Mayor Boley,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
7-0.
Item number 7, the McBee Coffee and Car Wash final plat, 2 lots to be postponed. I need a first and a second.
Motion to postpone item number 7.
I'll second.
Oh, I got Billy. All right, I'll do a roll call vote. Mayor Boley,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Billy.
Aye.
7-0.
Item number 8, public hearing rezoning B3 and A1 to planned development overlay district for R3 and B3 for Fairview Crossing, northeast corner of 144th and 169 Highway. This is a public hearing. I'm going to get down here. Public hearing of a planned development overlay district for R3 and B3 for Fairview Crossing. If any members of the public that wish to speak for this or against the item, please identify yourself, give your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes, but first I will ask staff to present an overview of the proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To clarify, this is another conceptual plan overlay. It has some significant differences than the other one in this aspect of it. In the other one, the property was zoned B3, and the proposal was to put a conceptual plan of B3P over the top, a commercial use over the top of a commercial use with that plan. These plans that we do in those scenarios are for the purpose of allowing adjustments, flexibility in where they site buildings, all those things. And then following that, just as we discussed with McBee, we have a final plat process or preliminary plat process that has to go through so that each of the lots can be broken out into a separate subdivision document, and then they can be separately sold. This one has B3. And if you happen to look at our old zoning maps that used to be colorized, now we have everything on the Clay County Assessor. Basically, everything east of the power lines. So if you look at your map that you have here, everything east of the power line toward the residential is zone B3. So it's Walmart ready. And the front half is zoned agriculture. This proposal would be to put a conceptual plan overlay over all of it, changing the B3 on the residential side where it's in the back to R3 with a P, and that P being the densities that we're talking about here, and then move the front to a B3P to allow the commercial development. This one has a similar scenario that there are multiple uses they've addressed. If you look at the very first page, you can also see the parking requirements of our code and how they intend to comply with those. Since it's so much larger than a smaller project that's got two lots that's, wouldn't fit, basically 3 of these lots is bigger than both of the lots on McBee's. They have to lay that stuff out in it. In this one, there are no tenants specifically identified, so there is no specific building design that they've requested. What that means is, just as we did with McBee's, anytime a building comes in here, that building will have to come forward with site plan approval and have planning commission overhead on that. This conceptual plan would allow a total of 13 lots to be created, 10 of which would be commercial, 3 of which would be multifamily. You can see lot 1 is the big one at the top. That would be townhomes. So Ashmont, Clay Creek, the Harborview Townhomes concept where you have 2, 3, or 4 units in one around a central court. And that would allow those to be townhomes. They could be individually sold off, or they could be acquired and each individual unit rented. Lot 2 would be true apartments. If you look at some of the pages in the back, you'll see that they anticipate, it's 7 or 10 or 12 units per each building. And they have the densities identified as well on that. And then you can see there's a 3rd lot that runs next to that proposed road. That proposed road is east of the power lines, and the power line easement runs basically on the backside of all those proposed buildings. So ultimately, it would allow that to go in. Oh, okay.
Hey, Steve, you're not on mute.
The commercial on the front, the application, as you can see, shows 10 commercial lots, lots 4 through 10. 4 through 13 for a total of 10. They have identified anticipated customers or tenants as a hotel on lot 5, and lots 10 and 11 likely fast food. The rest would be individual lot, retail, commercial, restaurant, however they wanted to whatever the tenants' needs were to go in there. It has a proposed private drive for their access. That's the other significant reason for a conceptual plan, is to allow them to have lots that don't front on a public road. So that allows them to happen. One thing that you should be aware, that this concept plan is precisely that. It is to be used primarily for purposes of determining the uses, the densities, so that we don't overdense, underdense in the future. So if they are overdense in the future, if they want to lessen the impact when they decide to develop, say, lot 1 or lot 2 for residential, they can always bring it down, but they have to come in for approval either way. We have standards associated with the site plan review for any of it, so they'd have to do it at that time. The commercial, same thing, they have to come forward. They have to meet the densities. But one of the things that is being discussed is this potential public street that goes through the middle of its exact location changing a bit. That's part of the traffic study. The developer's traffic study had tons of traffic improvements on it, which we've got it to MoDOT and we're waiting for them. But as a result of that, that's what's delayed it, and it's got the postponement of those two items following it because it just can't be done. But to be clear, this doesn't mean if you approve this exact plan that they will have the buildings set exactly where they are here. In part because it's impossible for anyone to figure out where they exactly sit because this isn't to scale or any of those things. It's mainly for the density to make sure the parking's taken care of. Through the site plan process, because they don't have a design scenario, we will also address the existing or the additional landscaping that has to occur, whatever those items are. During that process, they'll get credit for leaving existing good trees in place, especially along the northern portion of Tract A and the eastern portion of Tract A, B, and C to keep that vegetation there, to create that buffer from the existing single family. If you go through the staff report, we've identified the issues that were the most significant, how they are impacted, and what that would mean for the overall development. They have not proposed any specific sign proposals. So, and in part because they don't have any buildings. So if there would be any variances associated with that, that would have to go through when the site plan comes in. And that would be a similar scenario of, instead of having 364 square foot signs around a building, they could theoretically have one bigger sign with smaller signs, meeting the intent of 192 square feet maximum. And it also depends on, 64 is the maximum size based upon the site of a building. If you have a small building, then the maximum size is 10% of that facade that it's on. So it could be smaller than that, depending on what it is. You know, if you have a little kiosk type shop, it's not going to be, a 640 square foot wall on some of them. So that's an option. I think that covers similar to what we discussed with the McBee's overview of it. We've got a development overlay plan here, and any of the exact divisions of lots that would allow it for sale would occur later. Traffic being the significant impact on that. This one also has some sewer timing issues that we have to work out. Water's not an issue, but we need to know exactly where the sewer is going to go, how it develops, and we're finalizing all that stuff as well. So there we go.
Randy, do we have individuals?
David Lanning.
Is it? Oh,
Please state your name and address for the record, please, David.
David Lanning, 504 Northeast 192nd Terrace, Lake Meadows. So I know this is not anywhere close to where I live because I'm at the north end of town, but I have the townhomes just north of my house. I have the 185-foot barrier where we've got the riffraff coming down into the single-family homes with the issues that come along with it. We've got the trash, we've got the drugs, we've got all that stuff coming down from these temporary housings. I don't see how this is going to help our city become any better than what it is. I don't see apartments that are temporary housing no more than a year at a time living in there. I don't see how that's going to help anybody build up our town to be any better. We have a hard enough time getting workers to work at the Burger King that we just built, the Taco Bell that we just built. They're short-staffed, but we're going to bring in more fast food restaurants. I'm not seeing how any of this stuff is actually going to help us. That's what I've got.
Thank you for your time, David.
Christine Hall.
Chrissy,
my
please.
name's Chrissy Mall and I live at 340 Northeast 144th Street, which is about 3 lots behind the proposed development. I have more questions about this. I mean, I guess I could just say I'm not for it, living so close to it and after hearing what this gentleman just had to say. Just some of the questions I have are, is there really a demand for this type of housing in the area? Is it really fulfilling a need that the city has? Lot 3, I missed what type of housing that was going to be.
It's multifamily as well.
Okay, so is that like apartments, townhomes?
Yeah,
Which
no,
one?
yeah, it'd be apartments similar to lot 2.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. My concern is we live on 144th Street. And so it goes from pavement to gravel. And with that exit coming out on 144th Street, I think you're gonna have a lot of missed turns and that's gonna end up coming down and that's a dead end street. So how's that gonna be mitigated as far as keeping the traffic on a gravel road to a minimum? I know there's only a dozen of us that live down that road, but still like there's hardly any gravel on the road now to speak of. And then, my other concern is storm sewer issues. We're all on ditch out there. How's that all going to work out? Are we looking at paving the roads? Are we looking at curbs? Are we looking at storm sewers to mitigate any issues down there? There's quite a bit of washway. I know there's a flood zone down there. So, I mean, I'm not for it. I am concerned about the multi housing aspect of it. And there's already kids who I see walking in my backyard because I don't think anybody owns it. And so if you just populate that area more, then I feel like that issue is going to get worse. So those are just my concerns that I have as an individual citizen. So thank you.
Thank you for your time.
The applicant's here. I don't think he signed up either, but
Hi, my name is Shane Crease. My address is 13530 Mount Olivet Road, Smithville, Missouri. Excuse me, I got a little bit of sore throat. Anyway, I'm the owner of the property, the applicant, as Jack said. And I wanted to make sure everybody understands that prior to purchasing this property, I went to the planning and development department to see what could or couldn't be done. And so we sat down and went through the city's comprehensive plan to lay this out, what met the overall goals over the next 10 years with the city. So there's a lot of thought put into this. There's a lot of buffer areas between the existing neighbors, the existing subdivisions. So this isn't something that's just going to happen overnight. This is a long-term growth plan. So, I would say, it's probably something that would build out over the next 8 to 10 years. So with that being said, we tried to work with what the overall objective of the city was, and that's what you're looking at today.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Seeing no more that left to speak, I call the hearing closed. Let me go back to my notes here. We'll move on to item number 9, the Fairview Crossing Plan Development Overlay District. I need a motion to a first and a second to approve the proposed overlay development district for R3 and B3 of the Fairview Crossing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Questions?
I would like, I would like to note that when we were doing the strategic planning process, this area of town was identified as a multifamily work, play, shop concept. And a lot of people were very much on board with that. To my way of thinking, we've got a lot of people who would like to live here. And they've been asking for places to live. So, and there's a single family home has become so expensive that it's just almost impossible. And to have a place for them to come to, I think would benefit the city overall. And I do understand that there has been issues with drugs and kids and things like that. We have that in my own neighborhood. And I would imagine that we're going to have to step up the police department a little bit to take care of some of that. But I think this is what, 2 or 3 years ago that we did this?
4 years ago,
Yeah.
that we did the comp plan.
And this area was identified to be exactly what you're talking about right here. It will, in the long run, in my opinion, help the city, and it will also help our school district because we've got taxes and things like that coming in from this. Rooftops makes for better schools and for better amenities. If you want more amenities or better improvements in the city, there has to be a little bit of give and take. And that's pretty much where I'm at.
Just want to expand on what Deb's referring to. One of the things we identified during that planning process is that we have trouble keeping teachers, firefighters, police officers here because they can't live here. They can't afford a $350,000 house, which is about where we're starting right now in our housing. Those people
For a duplex,
for a duplex.
not single family,
Yeah,
350
for
for
a
a
duplex.
duplex.
1/2 of a duplex.
Yes.
So those people are having to go to school districts and fire stations and police departments where they can afford to live. So we have a constant turnover in that. I mean, look at the one ads for the school district right now. And, there's a multiple reasons that that's happening, but one of the biggest reasons is that we don't have a place for them to live.
Yeah, and somebody brought up the not being able to get workers. Kids living in $500,000 homes aren't jumping to work at Burger King, I can guarantee you, as somebody who owns businesses. And also Lake Meadows is a lot of rentals, what, half dozen or at least a couple dozen, Jack. So yeah, there's not just crime coming into Lake Meadows from the townhouses or Diamond Crest or anywhere else. It's there's people that rent there too. And as someone who lives in an apartment, I take offense to anyone implying that people that live in apartments are riffraff. We have some pretty nice apartments in this place. So anyway, we need it. We need workers. We've got a $100 billion development going in on the south end of town that's going to bring in 1,000 workers making prevailing wage that need a place to live. Those guys are going to be making anywhere from $50 to $100 an hour. I don't consider that riffraff. They need a place to sleep. They need a place to eat. And I'd rather them spend their tax dollars here than Lee Summit or somewhere else that they're going to drive from. So I think it's a great development and let's move forward.
I will.
If I may, and I understand the dynamics of where we're at. I just wanted to clarify something for I forgot her name. I apologize. Chrissy. She had expressed concerns about traffic, sewer, all that stuff. Those will be subject to the stuff that's postponed. That's a subdivision issue. To clarify that will come back before in another public hearing where you'll have a right to come up and speak about those issues specifically at that time, just to clarify. Secondly, to further clarify on one of the statements, I don't remember whom, as I indicated earlier, if this goes through lots 1, 2, and 3, would also have to come back through the site plan development process. So we can see what the buildings look like, all those things. One of the other things, and you all were integral in the adoption of the changes to the site plan process last year. And that was, we've added R3 development to the site plan review. And we also added the subdivision requirements of parkland dedication or park fee dedication. So all of those items will have to be addressed when anything comes forward. Currently, they're looking at 249 units total max at full build out. At $625 per unit in park fees. That's going to generate a significant amount of income for purposes of improving the park amenities in this general vicinity and for the city as whole as well. So those items are to be accounted for in the future. We can't account for them now because they haven't submitted a proposal yet. And then as it relates to the stormwater. If you look on your plat, you'll see track B and track C. Those are specific detention basins planned for this area. And they have submitted a full stormwater study for the entire drainage area here. And their recommended improvements are in accordance with our engineering stuff. We just haven't got through to the traffic yet. So that's going to be coming all in the next one. But this is the conceptual plan overlay portion. So if you guys have questions about how any of that works, let me know.
I do have a question. As the city grows, because we're not going to be able to stop growth, it's going to happen. And we did discuss a lot during the strategic plan and the comp plan of what we wanted the city to look like in the next 10 to 20 years. So this does fit that area in that characteristic group. But my question is, like, as more apartments are potentially built, and I did not go out and look to see the maximum stories that apartments could be at this point in time by ordinance or by code. If we go above 2 stories, are we visiting with the fire department? Are they going to have to invest in ladder trucks and things like that as we move forwards as a city?
Ultimately, the current scenario in the comprehensive plan is on the far south end of town, that they could be as tall as 6 stories. But up this far, no, they're not intended to be that. Our current, with the fire district involved, the current height that they want to limit it to is 4 stories. Anything over that's going to require them to start doing those things. So as this, keeping in mind, they get property taxes off of this too, and they get sales tax off of any of the sales, that will help generate additional funding for them as it relates to any of those. But these are all identified on page 2 specifically as 2 floors. I think all of them are 2 floors. It doesn't mean that they can't adjust them a little bit and get a 3-story. Because when you get to 4 stories, the construction requirements change. So anything over that requires a whole different, more expensive construction. So I would anticipate we're going to have the lower stature stuff for the first few decades of our growth over the next 20 years or the like. So based upon our projections as well, I would agree with the applicant. This is a 8 to 10, maybe even a little longer build out. But you may remember from the comprehensive plan process, one of the most significant issues that they brought up was mentioned here earlier, but one issue that hadn't been issued or discussed is the impact of the new airport and what that's going to mean to people that want to be able to work from home or their apartment or wherever and get to the airport quick for travel. So some of these things, all of these things kind of tie in with where we're at. So
That was brought up during the strategic planning that a lot of the professionals would prefer to be on the south end of town so they could hit up 435, 152 and get to the airport
Sure.
or wherever they needed to go, because a lot of young professionals would rather be closer to the main highways rather than have to struggle to get through town to get out. So like I said, all of this, we pretty much talked about during our breakout sessions on that.
Sure. My main purpose was to highlight that there are 2 processes running parallel. One is zoning to get the business up front and the other in the back. And then the other one will be the protective measures of traffic, storm, sanitary, water, all those issues so that it doesn't add additional burden to our existing scenario.
Any other questions, discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion and a second to approve the proposed?
I already have that.
I already did that. Oh, sorry. Randy, been a while. Call roll, please.
Okay.
You have a
Deb?
long break.
Aye.
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier,
Aye.
Billy,
Aye.
7-0.
This too will be on the May 3rd and May 19th agendas. And as with the other one, if we're able to wrap up the traffic impact stuff and the rest of the development agreement concepts on this one, it will be at the postponed items that are identified here will be on the next agenda. And to clarify, to expedite, when you request a motion related to items 10 and 11, it's a postponement, so you can combine them in the motion. You can move to postpone items 10 and 11, so we don't have to go through it twice, if that's what something you want to do.
Thank you. I was wondering if we could do that.
Yeah.
So item 10 and 11, do I have a first and a second to postpone those?
So moved.
I got Dennis. Yep. All right, Mayor Boley,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Billy,
Aye.
7-0.
Motion to adjourn.
Was that John? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.
I know. I will call you in the morning.